Well, hey guys, so it looks as though the FDA is finally cracking down on the remaining dregs of over-the-counter hydroquinone. In this video, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my opinion. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Andrea. I'm a board-certified dermatologist. I post skincare content here on YouTube, anti-aging tips. So if that sounds of interest to you, consider subscribing. Or if you like Instagram or TikTok as your preferred method of social media, consider following me over there as well. So the FDA has issued a warning to 12 companies who are still flying under the radar and selling over-the-counter hydroquinone. Now, to bring you up to speed, I'm gonna link in the description box a video I did, what was it, last year, explaining why hydroquinone is no longer going to be sold over the counter. But to summarize it, in 2020, the CARES Act was passed to kind of expedite some things around the pandemic. And with that, there were a lot of little legislation pieces kind of built in that sort of got wrapped up all in one. And one of those was hydroquinone. And because of the CARES Act, it just kind of made it so that they decided to remove it from being able to be something that we could buy over the counter. What is hydroquinone? It is the gold standard when it comes to a topical treatment for fading hyperpigmentation from like healing acne, but also melasma. And it used to be that you could buy it over the counter in 2% strengths, and it's safe to use on the skin up to 3 months. You do need to take a break from it, but in that 2% strength that was sold over the counter, it's pretty safe. There are some concerns with it. You can develop irritation, and the thing that people talk about the most is something called pseudo-ochronosis or exogenous ochronosis. This is an adverse effect that can happen with prolonged use of hydroquinone, especially in high percentages, which is what is often prescribed for treatment of these skin conditions, not what you would buy over the counter. Exogenous ochronosis, you get these patches of discoloration on sun-exposed skin, typically overlying bone. It's like most common on the, it's just called the zygomatic bone, the cheekbones here. Starts out as like dark brown, kind of almost bluish brown patches, and can go on to develop these little bumps that are referred to as caviar-like. In dermatology, as a side note, they're always labeling, actually medicine in general, I should say, always naming stuff after food. Always. Tapioca this, caviar this. They're always naming stuff after food. Anyways, I digress. It's a pretty disfiguring condition. It's really hard to treat. Treatments include certain laser procedures to target this deposition of this pigment down in the dermis. Sunscreen is imperative because UV rays exacerbate and drive this issue even further. I mean, it's an adverse effect. It's a problem though that most often happens, like I said, when using high percentages of topical hydroquinone, such as what you get in prescription strength stuff, long-term without ever taking a break. And it's also, a lot of the cases that have been reported actually come from these skin lightening creams online that can be adulterated with other things, namely mercury. Some countries throughout the world, there is a huge market for skin bleaching. And so in some areas of the world especially, you have a huge demand for these skin lightening creams that can be adulterated with things. A lot of them have super potent topical steroids along with high percentages of hydroquinone, sometimes mercury. So a lot of cases of pseudo-ochronosis come from that. The 2% stuff that was sold over the counter here, sure, it could happen, but it's pretty rare. The most common side effect was actually irritation. But anyways, there's always been this fear-mongering around hydroquinone. You know, people talk about it causing cancer. I debunked this in a video that's quite old on my channel, but a lot of that fear-mongering comes from research based in animal models, looking at a type of cancer in the kidney, as well as a cancer of the blood. And that doesn't actually bear out to be true for human use when applying it to the skin. Suffice it to say, hydroquinone is safe, but you know, a lot of dermatologists advocate its removal from the over-the-counter market because it can cause a lot of irritation, which for people trying to treat hyperpigmentation can make that much worse. And you do need to take a break from it. And the other issue that can happen is you can get bleaching of the surrounding, healthy skin. The normal appearing skin can become bleached. You can also get rebound worsening of hyperpigmentation. So while it's a safe ingredient, It's the kind of thing that honestly is better handled under the supervision of your dermatologist, healthcare provider, rather than as an over-the-counter. If you want my opinion, I'm a bit torn because for years it's been over-the-counter, and honestly, it's not really caused problems, and a lot of people are comfortable using it. It's really helpful, like if you get a pimple, put it on right when you get the pimple. It will reduce the chances that it heals with a dark mark and then stop. It was a very weak concentration. So I was, I never really saw a problem with it, honestly. But, other dermatologists are, happy to see it gone. They would prefer to not have patients use that over the counter due to the potential risk. So it was removed from the market in September of 2020, and a lot of manufacturers have already taken it out. Differin had a dark spot corrector I reviewed a few years ago. They have since reformulated that to no longer have hydroquinone in it. The brand Specific Beauty that I recommend to you guys, I've reviewed in the past, they had a hydroquinone, a fragrance-free hydroquinone cream that they no longer have. But every time I do a shop with me video, Ambi Fade Cream is still on the shelves, and you guys have commented it is still on the shelves of your stores, and I've been wondering like when they were gonna take that off or do something, and they've just been sitting there standing their ground. And the FDA has issued a warning to not just Ambi but 11 other companies for selling illicit skin brightening agents. Everyone was told to get rid of the hydroquinone back in September of 2020, and the CARES Act was passed. That was, I thought, oh, is this all gonna disappear in the next few months? And like I said, it's still out there on the shelf. So I guess the FDA, is finally getting around to slapping people on the wrist. Ambi, honestly, aside from Ambi, these other brands I've never heard of. Clinical Formula LLC, Elements Brands Inc., Genoma Lab USA, IntelliLight / Dr. Thomas Balshi, M&M Beauty and Wellness, Neoteric Cosmetics / Scott's Liquid Gold, never heard of that, Skin Authority LLC, Skin Pro, Skin PS Brands, True Earth Health Products, and Ultimark Products. Anyway, so interestingly enough, if you go on Amazon, you can still get the hydroquinone that a lot of brands have removed from their line. It's still on Amazon. Now, how close it is to expiring, that I don't know. But so it's still available on Amazon, which is interesting. I wonder, Amazon has kind of let that slide under the radar. Anyway, all that to say, a lot of people, like I said, a lot of dermatologists are in favor of the removal of hydroquinone, but these direct-to-consumer telehealth companies, man, they have really taken advantage of not only the boom and rise in telemedicine around the pandemic, but also loosening of regulations as far as telehealth. And now you've got this CARES Act that has banned the over-the-counter sales of hydroquinone. It's a perfect opportunity for these direct-to-consumer skincare telehealth businesses who sell hydroquinone, prescription hydroquinone. Now, presumably with these telehealth companies, like I've heard of Muesli and there are a few others, you're seeing a healthcare provider and you're being evaluated, and then they give you a prescription either for hydroquinone or some kind of compounded formula of hydroquinone and whatever, azelaic acid, some other skin lightening ingredients. Now, a while ago, I did a video on things, sponsorships I turn down or videos I don't do, and I mentioned that I don't review these direct-to-consumer telehealth companies, and the reason I don't do that is because I just feel like it's a little weird for me as a physician to review the prescribing practices of another healthcare provider. And essentially with these direct-to-consumer telehealth companies, that is what I would be doing. But in this video, I just wanted to point out that I noticed a correlation with the removal of hydroquinone from the over-the-counter market, the loosening of regulations around telehealth and the pandemic, and increased demand for telemedicine as a whole. And then these direct-to-consumer telehealth companies that will gladly prescribe you hydroquinone for a fee. I don't know, it's just interesting. But at least there you are presumably being supervised by a healthcare provider to make sure that you're not developing any side effects. So I think that's a good thing as a whole. I mean, that's their business model. When I did my video, what was it, a year ago already at this point, a lot of you guys were really upset, and I understand why. You're like, I've relied on this off and on for years. I've never had any problems with it. You know, my dermatologist has told me how to use it safely. I feel comfortable using it. I don't use it for longer than, 3 months at a time without taking a break. But anytime I get, breakouts or whatever, I kind of like to use it to not have hyperpigmentation. And now this otherwise affordable over-the-counter treatment is now no longer available. And these direct-to-consumer services, while it's great that you're going to be monitored by a physician, and in those you're likely going to get a prescription for the stronger stuff, the higher percentages, they're not going to give you the 2% stuff. Those are not inexpensive services. And so, for a lot of people, it's kind of now a gap in something that they previously were able to manage, and now, they have to rely on going to the doctor for a prescription or whatever. In my opinion, this should come in the pipeline. I really hope it does. And that is, they need to approve Finacea for over-the-counter, to sell over-the-counter without a prescription. Finacea, if you're not familiar, is azelaic acid at prescription strength. 15 and 20% azelaic acid should be sold over-the-counter. Finacea should be an over-the-counter medication, in my opinion, and for a few reasons. First of all, it is an effective skin lightening ingredient. You don't have the risk of pseudo-ochronosis like you do with hydroquinone. You don't have it, while it can be irritating, it's generally pretty well tolerated. You don't get rebound worsening hyperpigmentation. You can use it all over your face. It's not gonna bleach the surrounding skin. It's naturally present on your skin. Unlike hydroquinone, it's safe to use in pregnancy. And in addition to being an evidence-based treatment for hyperpigmentation, it's actually been shown in clinical trials to be as effective as hydroquinone for melasma. So in addition to being good for hyperpigmentation, it's also an acne treatment. So people could safely use it for acne, and it's also a rosacea treatment. So people with rosacea could use it. I mean, it makes sense. And in other countries, it's sold over the counter, like Australia. Yeah, I really think that that would be a suitable and nice option in the over-the-counter FDA approved treatments for skin conditions, would be to make Finacea, azelaic acid, over the counter. And I know what you're thinking, oh, well, there are so many over the counter azelaic acids, why that? Well, the ones that you can get now over the counter are only 10%. And we have no studies at that lower percentage to show that it works for anything. So as it stands now, that 10% or whatever percentage strength of azelaic acid that you're buying in products like the Paula's Choice azelaic acid booster, or any of the others out there, there are a ton. Those are not necessarily, they're not like approved treatments. So because they're cosmetics, who knows if, A, that strength is effective, or B, that their formulation is, they don't necessarily need to demonstrate efficacy at all of their products. Reason, I just think it would do the public a huge service to make the prescription stuff, the stuff that we know works, available over the counter. A lot of products also have potassium azelaicyl diclysonate that is allegedly more stable or easier to work with, but has never been shown in any clinical studies to do what actual azelaic acid does. So a lot of products will kind of market themselves cleverly as like acid azelaic, or use some kind of nebulous terminology with that ingredient. So for that reason, I find that the azelaic acid over-the-counter stuff, it's this huge landscape for brands to sell you something that's not necessarily evidence-based for treating these issues. People with acne, rosacea, and hyperpigmentation would benefit from having an over-the-counter FDA-approved form of azelaic acid and not having to rely on the cosmeceutical formulations, which are much weaker and not evidence-based, given the percentages, and they're just not under the same degree of regulation or stringency as like Finacea. Over-the-counter Finacea would be a victory. Just like when they allowed us to have over-the-counter Differin, adapalene, that was a huge victory for people managing their acne. Very safe. To me, Finacea, azelaic acid at the prescription strengths, is a equally, if not more compelling ingredient than even Differin for being available over the counter, because it's very safe in pregnancy. It's used for a lot of different skin conditions, acne, rosacea, melasma. It's well tolerated typically, not irritating, and it's safe to use in pregnancy. So I don't know, to me it's just a natural thing to have available as an over-the-counter option. I really wish that would be the case. But all of these skincare brands out there that have their like, form of azelaic acid, they're gonna be quaking in their boots if that ever happens, because if consumers are smart, and honestly, consumers have gotten a lot smarter when it comes to skincare. They know a lot more than, stuff you could get away with in the 90s and early 2000s would never fly these days. So if Finacea became available over the counter, consumers have gotten smart to the fact that, hey, this is an FDA approved treatment now. Why am I gonna buy your potassium azolyl diglycinate, whatever thing that's never been studied? Why am I gonna buy your weaker azelaic acid anymore? I'm gonna go with the stuff that has actually been shown to work and is actually FDA approved to treat the things that I'm dealing with. Maybe Ambi will just not take their product off the market. This I would love to know from like a regulatory standpoint. Like, what is the penalty, say for Ambi? Because let's face it, Ambi is the most popular, well-known over-the-counter hydroquinone. What would be the penalty if they just didn't abide by the FDA's, warning? Is it a fee that they have to pay? Because a lot of times in cases like this, the fee might not be enough to justify to their profit removing it from the over-the-counter sales. I honestly do not know enough about regulatory whatever to know anything about that. But I would wonder, is the fine just, a fee that to Ambi is like small change, and they could hack it and keep it on there? Because I have noticed that every time I go on Target, I've started to see over the past year brands that I used to know as having an over-the-counter hydroquinone, you start seeing it being removed. A lot of brands have, reformulated products that previously had it in it, but Ambi is standing strong. They've got their Ambi Fade Cream for oily skin, their Ambi Fade Cream, their regular Ambi Fade Cream or whatever. They're not going anywhere. They're just standing there like, I don't know. Yeah, Ambi Fade Cream is also really useful for people who get ingrown hairs in the beard area, because those in deeper skin tones, that's gonna heal with a dark mark. And Ambi was always really useful in those situations because it kind of is a little bit mildly exfoliating, and it could help in reducing the chances of that healing with a dark mark. Not to mention like bug bites and stuff. I mean, for hyperpigmentation, it was just a useful thing to have over the counter. And to reiterate, there's no reason to fear it causing cancer or anything. The main risk with it, as I see it, is that it can be irritating. But let's face it, a lot of things sold over the counter to you are also irritating. Like, another ingredient in skin lightening products is niacinamide. Definitely can be helpful for hyperpigmentation, but so many of you have verbalized in the comments, and this definitely happens, niacinamide can be irritating to people, especially at the higher percentages, which a lot of brands pump into their products. So you could just as easily get irritated from a non-hydroquinone skin lightening product like niacinamide or licorice root, those things. Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a little update because, I do a lot of these shop with me videos. I did one recently going through Target and shopping all of the over-the-counter skin lightening products. I'm gonna link that down below in the description box if you're looking for alternatives to hydroquinone. I go into detail about the different ingredients in that video, so I will link that down below. But I thought it was relevant to do an update because I do shop in those stores a lot, and I did that video last year saying it would be removed from the market, and you guys are like, we still can get it, we still see it. But looks like the FDA is slapping some warnings on people, on brands. So I don't know if Ambi is gonna abide or not, but that's the update. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. On the end slate, actually, I will put that Target video if you wanna check it out. But if you like this, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.